This episode was recorded remotely.
Hey, welcome to the Ordinary Black Professionals. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Stefan.
And this week we have Temi on the line with us talking to us, and she'll be telling us all about her career journey. So Temi is a graduate software developer on a tech grad scheme, and she's also the creator of Simplex Code. And this is a really great platform if anyone hasn't looked at it yet, but it's essentially an educational tech platform, and it provides kind of free, accessible, really bite-sized resources for anyone who's interested in all things technology. And Temi is also a YouTuber who creates early careers related content in the tech world. So, hi, Temi, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Temi.
Hi. Thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here today talking with you both.
We're excited to have you as well on our podcast.
Dive right in. So, Temi, we know that you're a software developer, but where did it all begin? How did your career journey start? Take us back to uni and kind of walk us through to how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so for my undergrad, I did a degree in geology and physics. So I majored in geology and minored in physics. And it was actually in my second year that I was introduced to a programming language called Python for the first time. And at that point, I found coding quite hard. So I found I wasn't really interested in the tech industry at that point. I didn't think it was for me. And then a few years later, I did a master's degree in geophysics because I thought I wanted to go down the route of oil and gas at the time. So during my master's, I was introduced to another programming language, and I started to understand it a little bit better at this point. And the things that we were actually doing with coding, I found interesting. So that kind of sparked my interest in tech.
What was that second programming language?
Yeah, so it was MATLAB. So it's basically it's used for like data visualization. So it just means that you can kind of display data like in graphs or in like 2D or 3D models. So I just found it more interesting because it wasn't just like you're writing a code to do something. You were writing code, but actually seeing the data itself. So yeah,
it was almost bringing it more to life, essentially,
exactly.
than Python. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, I think from there, I just started to do a bit more research into tech, into the tech industry, and then came across some YouTubers and bloggers as well.
Okay. What kind of YouTubers? Do you remember who they were?
Yeah, so one of them was, I think her name is Sene Goddess on YouTube. So she's a software engineer based in the US. So she was kind of the first person I saw, the first Black woman I saw actually, like programming and documenting her career on YouTube. And from there, I was kind of like, I was quite amazed because I didn't think there was, I guess, like a community of like women, like Black women in tech, kind of in the software engineering space. So that really interested me when I found her YouTube channel.
Okay. Because you said that you wanted before, like when you was doing your master's, that you wanted to get into oil and gas or the oil and gas industry. What did you know specifically what you wanted to get into in that industry? I'm trying to understand how much of a detour was it to go from oil and gas to now working in tech?
Yeah, well, I think I didn't know, I guess what I wanted to do was geophysics within the oil and gas industry. So yeah, but that was mainly because my dad's an engineer. So I guess that's where I was influenced from. It wasn't really that was my passion. It was more of that's pretty much what I knew. So that's kind of why I was going down that path.
Okay. And that kind of leads me on to your next question, since you mentioned your dad. So I know before you said that, you've got a Nigerian background and kind of your parents wanted you to go into the quote unquote traditional jobs like medicine, law, engineering. What was their reaction like when you was exploring moving into the tech industry? Were they quite surprised that that was something you were interested in, or did you kind of have to persuade them that this was a good career route to go into?
Yeah, well, I think they were actually quite supportive from the beginning because it's STEM. So even though it's not like traditionally like law or medicine or engineering, I think they were still okay with it because they knew it was a career where I would still make money.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why
yeah,
we're all working.
yeah,
That's why we're here.
exactly. So I think at the end of the day, what I found anyway from Nigerian parents is not only do they want you to be in like the traditional careers, like what's important to them is that you make money as their child. And because they knew that as someone working in tech or coding or whatever the case might be, that you can make money from it, they weren't they were still supportive, really.
Right, okay.
Mm.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
fact that it's a stable, as you said, an industry that you can make money, that was fine.
yeah,
I'm getting a theme of being influenced by different scenarios, different people, which is quite good because I think it's maybe quite a theme of today's discussion about seeing people doing what you do and being influenced by it, and what that lady on YouTube showed you sparked something in you.
Yeah.
definitely.
So once you made the decision that tech was for you, how did you go about kind of getting into the job that you're in now?
Yeah, so once I knew that tech was what I wanted to do, I was looking at jobs that were quite broad, but were geared towards graduates, obviously. So I kind of just stumbled upon graduate schemes. I think I was looking on one of the grads websites where they kind of advertise jobs.
Yeah, like a milk round or something.
Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah. And through that, I just kind of discovered graduate schemes. So I just started applying for a lot of them. And I think that's what was best for me because even though now I am a software developer, I wasn't sure at the time if what I wanted to do was like programming as a career. So I
Mm,
think I really just got onto a tech grad scheme because I wanted to explore my options within the tech industry.
right, okay. And the one
Okay.
that you're on now, it's a rotational program, so you get to try out different things and explore different parts of the business.
Yeah, so I started off in when I first joined around September 2019, I think. I
Mm.
started off in a kind of mobile networks team where I was for around 10 months. And then from there, I moved into a software engineering team, which is where I am now. So, yeah, that is one good thing. You get to kind of explore and work in different areas of the business and find out what it is that you do and don't like.
Right, okay.
That's
Okay.
good. That's good because you don't really know what you want to do, especially in IT. Like I did a computer science degree, but at the end of it, you don't know what the hell you want to do.
Yeah,
Like,
but I feel like when you're straight out of uni,
yeah, you're
you don't
straight out of
even know
uni,
what
you
you
don't
want to
know.
do anyway.
Yeah,
Even now, I don't even think I know what I want to do in my career. Almost 6 years in, and I'm still trying to work it out.
yeah, yeah. Even now, I mean, at any point you could switch up,
Yeah,
your career.
Yeah,
You could be like 35 and be like, nah, I'm doing something new now.
yeah.
And a lot of
yeah,
people do that. So it's good to have a little taste of different things and just to know that they're there as well.
Yeah, it's
definitely.
funny to say that actually, because well, a couple of people in my company, they used to be teachers and they were working as teachers up until kind of late 20s, early 30s, and now have decided to switch into consulting. So they're a consultant on the grad scheme in their early 30s, late 20s,
Oh.
because they've done that exactly what you said, had that career
Yeah,
switch.
yeah, I've seen some people like that as well. Yeah,
Which is
you
not
could be
late,
a
which is
grad.
not later on in life, but it's
I
later
mean,
in your 20s.
you could
Yeah.
be a grad at any time.
I agree.
Really, yeah.
So I have to ask, how many black people were there? That's as D&I lead, I'm thinking, how diverse was this grad scheme?
Yeah, it really isn't that diverse, especially in because within the business I come under the technology unit. So I think in total, in terms of how many grads, maybe about 200 odd, and of that there are around maybe 80 technology graduates. So
Right.
within those 80, I think there's a handful of us who are black. It's really, really small. Most of the black grads are within like HR or global, so other units of the business. So in my office where I work, I'm the only black graduate, and I definitely feel like that being that the only one definitely did have an effect on me at the beginning.
Mm,
I think I'm used to it now just because I think it is what it is, but in the beginning it was a bit of a shock, I think.
Do you want to talk on that a bit? How did you find it?
Yeah, I think it was very like I said, it was just very isolating from the beginning. And personally, so I grew up in the Middle East. I spent my early childhood in Scotland, and then I grew up in the Middle East, and then came to the UK when I was 16. So
Right.
I'm used to being around people of different cultures anyway. That's not an issue. But I think just being around, I guess just being the only Black person again
Yeah.
was kind of a big thing, because at uni there was like loads of people from loads of different backgrounds, and I had like, my Black friends and my friends from different cultures, but not having any Black friends and not having any Black grads that I can relate to or speak to was a lot, I think. And I think
Mm.
that definitely affected the way that I integrated within like the grads themselves and within the company as well. It really yeah, I think it did have an effect on me in the beginning. But like I said, now I think I'm more used to it. But I think it was something that I had to adjust to at the beginning of my career.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally understand that feeling.
Mm.
I The first company I was at, consulting wise, was very big and it was super diverse. And I moved over to where I am now, much smaller company, and it was a shock. It was a big adjustment because I was one of, at the time, three Black people out of a company of about 100.
Wow.
Um, and then one left, and then it was just one of two. So even less. Um, it's a little bit more diverse now, but it's not where it kind of needs to be. And it is a massive adjustment because the terms of reference is just so different, and you don't sometimes it's hard to kind of find a connection with someone who doesn't
Yeah.
have the same lived experience as you. Yeah, it can just be very difficult. I don't think enough people speak about how difficult it is starting a new job in an all white space, essentially.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in a career, especially in an industry like technology, where not only is it not diverse kind of culturally and ethnically, but also in terms of gender or sex, it's also not very
Mm.
diverse.
Yeah. I mean, I have the same kind of experience as well. As a graduate, when I came in, I started like 2000. When I first started, it was like 2011, and there were, I think I was the only, maybe one of two in the grad scheme. But after we broke away from the grad scheme and went to our like separate projects, there were times where I didn't see any Black person at all for months. And also I was doing
Wow.
consulting, so I was on projects that were out of London, in hotels in different places, so I was very isolated. And then also I started out as a grad, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And because I don't have the same, as you said, shared experience or lived experience as somebody else, as the others, the way I was struggling didn't match with the way they were struggling.
Yeah, the struggle is different.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
true.
I was struggling with understanding, as you say, their terms of reference, the communication, um, understanding concepts they were trying to explain to me. And maybe part of it is me, but also I think part of it was it's my first experience as like a graduate or an intern or something, and I'm not used to it,
Yeah,
and I don't know how to translate what they're saying back to me yet.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really struggled in the early parts until I've learned how to translate how they were explaining things. And it sounds weird because we're all speaking English, but
But this is a thing. I think so many times companies and people really don't understand that. Yes, you'll speak the same language and yes, you'll live in the same country, but
mm,
your cultural backgrounds, your sexuality, all of that stuff, all that diversity, your social economic background, it, it influences the way you move, the way you present yourself, the way that you will communicate to individuals, the way that you will self-promote yourself. And so therefore, when you are moving into different spaces that are predominantly white, where everyone's kind of had the same sort of lived
mm,
experience, um, you're the alien, you're the outsider coming in, and you have to try to struggle to navigate your way up. And I think because of those factors and because people don't truly take them into consideration, we see certain groups, whether it's black, whether it's people from different socioeconomic classes, not moving up um, the seniority level, because they get left behind because of those reasons, because people don't truly take it into consideration when they are, helping these people come up the ranks.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that, actually, what you were saying, just because I remember kind of telling my parents at some point, I think I was going to be on like a coffee chat, a Zoom chat with some people in my team. They were all like older white men in their like mid 40s, and I remember telling my parents like how nervous I was, because I'd be the only woman, first of all, and then the only black person on the call as well. So I remember telling them how nervous I felt, just because I wasn't sure what I could speak about and what I could contribute to the conversation, because it wasn't like they were talking about work, it was just a casual chat. And I remember saying how nervous I was, and they were saying to me, my parents said to me, well, you grew up in the UK, you're from the UK, you should be able to relate and chat to them. And they also went on to say, like, we're from Nigeria, even though we have like a different cultural background, we can still like make conversation and chat, so you should be able to too. But yeah, I just wanted to just agree with what you both have been saying, in terms of, just because you're from the same country, speak the same language, it doesn't mean then that you don't have different lived experiences within that, and then therefore there's certain things that you can't relate to. So
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I always find that when people do have those similar experiences, it bonds you in a way that it doesn't, like, it bonds them in a way that it doesn't bond you. If I just give an example, people in my company now, it's very it's predominantly white, but it's more importantly predominantly middle class. A lot of people have gone to private and boarding schools, and I never realized just how isolating that could be. I just went to a normal state school, but because everyone there has come from a certain background, they've all have done certain things, and one of those certain things is skiing. And everyone in the company skis, and I remember walking in and they were like, oh yeah, ski season. When I took a year abroad, like a gap year from uni, I did a ski season in blah 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 place in Spain, in France. Or they would say, oh yeah, I'm going skiing with my family, and my cousins are coming along, or I'm skiing with my kids, and all this other stuff. And I was just sat there thinking, skiing, like my parents, and this is a massive stereotype, but like black people don't tend to ski.
We don't go to places that are cold.
Oh, cold, yeah. So like when I mentioned it to my parents, they were like, well, it wasn't even a money factor. It was just a fact of, I don't want to go somewhere that's cold. Like, I want to go somewhere else. But because so many of them can talk about skiing, it immediately bonds you to that person. So when it comes down to like passing on knowledge, or seeing myself in you, they already have that instant connection, because you ski, or because you went to the same private school, because you do wine and cheese nights, or you do the typical middle class activities, and so therefore it's easier to kind of be like, well, I'll put you under my wing and sponsor you and coach you, and help you up through the
Ugh,
ranks.
I've seen so
And
many of those.
that makes such a difference. And I just really think that a lot of companies, need to take that into consideration. And I've seen in kind of the D&I space a lot more of that's been being spoken about, because it does have an impact on things. But as you mentioned that example, Temi, of you going to lunch with some colleagues, it just brought to mind many a times I've sat with my own colleagues talking about ski seasons and having no idea what's going on. And hoping one day that I'll be able to go skiing so I could get into the conversation with them. What advice would you give your old self now, knowing the information that you know?
Yeah, so I think I would tell myself, first, when I first came into the company, I think I would say that I need to make sure that you are kind of upfront with what you want, and what you want to get out of this role, like what you want to get out of your job. Because I think in the beginning I took a bit of the backseat, just because I guess I wasn't that comfortable with my team. I guess I just met everyone. I was new, I was straight out of uni, so I wasn't really accustomed to the corporate culture yet. So I guess I would tell myself to try and just really think about what I want, and voice those opinions to my manager at the time. Yeah, and I think also probably to try and not let you the fact that there isn't much in common between yourself and your team get in the way. Because I think in the beginning, just actually, I think in general, I'm quite a introverted and reserved person. So in the beginning, when I first joined the team, I found it a little bit difficult to integrate with my team and just get comfortable. And so I would say to my, I guess, my past self, to try and not be so in your head all the time, and try and
Mm,
find some common ground so that you can build relationships. I think whilst eventually at the end of my time in the team, I did build those relationships, but I think it took a little bit longer than it should have, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. With the first piece of advice around kind of being quite open about what you want, like what were the challenges in do you think that was based on being quite like new in the industry, like just kind of first jobs out of uni, trying to figure out your feet and find out where the lay of the land essentially? Do you think that had a big impact in you being able to kind of say to people, this is what you want to achieve, or these are what your objectives are?
Yeah, I do. I think because I was because I was straight out of uni, I think I wasn't sure how to kind of voice those opinions. I didn't have
Mm,
anyone who was even the year above me who could tell me, this is kind of how you go about things. If this is how you feel, this is what you should tell your manager. I didn't really have anyone telling me what the best way to go about things were. So I
yeah.
was kind of just trying to figure it out for myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to that 100,000%, because it was the same case with me when was in the my first consulting company. I just felt like I was kind of like flapping my feet, like had no clear direction, didn't know how to really ask for what I want, um,
But
and
isn't
to
that
say it
part of
confidently.
you don't really know what you want?
You know what? No,
No?
no, because even 6 months in, let's say, I still struggle to kind of say this is clearly what I wanted to do and really fight for that. So
Mm.
if I ask for it, for example, oh, I now want to not work in financial services, I want to work in telecommunications, let's say, and someone told me, no, you've got more FS experience, I'd be like, oh, okay, sure. But that fighting for it and really like advocating for myself, I think that took a long time to feel confident to do and know how to do it.
Mm.
But I felt that other people who I joined the grad scheme with, they picked that up really quickly. They realized that to be able to really succeed in the corporate world, so much of it is based on how well you can advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it just took me way too long to realize that.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, it was like at first I didn't know exactly. I knew I wanted to do IT, but I didn't know exactly what part of it. And I wasn't in a position where we did rotation like in Temi's graduate scheme. So if somebody said to me, "Do this," I would have gone it. I would have gone and done it because
But what if it
how do I
wasn't,
know?
but what if it wasn't challenging?
How do I
Like,
know
no, but you'll be like, oh, this feels really boring.
after I've already got stuck doing it?
Yeah, fair.
But I don't know. I ended up in that position as well because somebody said to me, "Go over here. There's a project over here for you and a position for you." So I went there, and it was the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But it taught me a lot of stuff about myself, one, and two about like how out of depth I was and how I couldn't understand what they were doing, saying, how to get ideas across or how to absorb what they were saying in like complete work. There was a lot of things I had to learn, but I wouldn't have known what it was going to be like until I experienced it. So in
Mm.
some ways, yes, as a graduate, you want to come in and be like, oh, somebody tell me like what's the right thing to do, but there are some things that you still have to experience.
I agree, but I feel like some people
I'm not saying you
get
have to
ahead.
experience negative things, but
No, no, no. I think you do. I think I tell you what, being on rubbish projects and having rubbish managers to a certain extent has probably taught me more about what a good manager is than
yeah,
you know, actually having a good manager, because you can see
mm,
what can be improved. But I think when I first joined, um, that consulting company, I said I want to get promoted in the first year. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to get promoted in the first year.
Mm,
And my kind of coach, personal development person said to me, don't worry about that. Just think about getting skills, relax yourself. Just understand the lay of the land. And I was kind of like, yeah, you're right. It's probably not that important, just kind of let it go. But everyone else in my grad scheme was focused so hard on getting promoted in the first year.
mm. I think part of that is culture of that company, right? Because promotion is just everything to everybody. There is some truth to what she said, though, right? Get some skills. You're young, you're grad, learn some stuff. No? I think there's still some stuff to take.
I think it's a mixture of needing to know the lay of the land, but
Mm.
also still be like hungry and ambitious.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Temi?
No, I think you know what? I think you're right. I think it's the hungry and ambitious part that she was trying to uh lead you away from. Because the hungry and ambitious part was you driving towards the promotion, but also she was right in like learn some of your trade, learn some skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Temi?
Yeah, so I think I agree. I think when, like, in my case, I think when I first joined the company I'm at now, I didn't really know what it was I wanted to do, just because
Mm,
I was new to the industry. So it was my intention to just find out what it was I wanted to do by being in different teams and by working on different projects. But once I realized what I wanted to do was software engineering, then I started to kind of think about, okay, within software engineering, what skills do I want? And then from there, I would purposely go out of my way to speak to my manager about the kind of projects I wanted to work on. So I definitely think in the beginning, especially early on in your career, that it's good to sometimes work on a bit of everything and find out what it is you do and don't like. But I think once you have an idea of what it is you want to do, then it's up to you and yourself only to then make it happen and to propel your career forwards. Because like you were saying, Nicole, I think even if that lady was saying it because she thought it was in your best interest, I think also sometimes you know what is best for you.
mm.
So it is good to listen to other people, but also just go ahead and do whatever you think is going to benefit you the most.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I agree with that. So Temi, where do you see yourself going, um, kind of in the tech industry? Like, what's your ideal role if you could do anything?
I think now I quite like what I'm doing. So I quite like software development.
Okay.
So that's the kind of field I see myself in the future. Although I definitely think I would like to tap into the cloud and maybe look at cloud engineering. But I
Okay.
think this sector is, yeah, I think the sector is kind of where I want to be.
Okay, so you mentioned cloud engineering. What exactly about cloud engineering? What intrigues you about that area?
I think because it's quite, I wouldn't say it's a new thing, but it's something I'm becoming more aware of. And I think more people within the tech space are speaking about. So
Hmm.
AWS, Azure, GCP. I think the way that technology is going, I think a lot more engineers in the future will have some sort of cloud computing skills. So I definitely think now is the time for me to get into it and find out more about it. So I think my first stage would be to look at what AWS is and work on maybe getting a certification and then just really go from there. But I think it's more of just an interest thing, and it's where I kind of see the industry going at some point. So I think it's a good idea to just learn more about it, really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people were saying that's where the future is, and I mean they've been saying it for the last
Yeah.
couple of years anyway. So it does seem to be in the future. Those companies have grown massively in like how many people are using cloud computing now, and it seems to be the really hot skill on the market. I know you do some like videos. We mentioned you're a YouTuber at the start. You do some videos like talking about those jobs that are available with those kind of skills. So it's definitely a money maker.
And this is a bit of a
Yeah.
loaded question. So, why do you think there's not that many black females kind of being software developers in this industry?
Hmm. That is a good question, I think. Um, I think it probably goes back to, obviously, like school and higher education. I think in some instances, I think Black women and Black men as well are kind of seen as not being able to perform as highly in terms of in academics. So I think that sometimes we're discouraged from following certain career paths. I think
Yeah.
it's unless we come from a background where our parents are very invested in, our futures and our education, and they kind of push like STEM. I think otherwise, I definitely think in schools it's a case of those careers aren't really something that teachers and other members of staff think we're capable of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think as well, our parents, like regardless of what jobs they're in, they don't know all and every like all and every jobs and all and every career routes. They only
Yeah.
know kind of what they do and what their immediate circle around them do as well. So
Mm.
they can't even say, oh, well, maybe this is a good career route for you because they just may not be aware of it. If we had someone who wanted to get into film, we wouldn't have the foggiest idea. Like if our child wants to get into film, we wouldn't have the foggiest idea what kind of like what goes on in the film industry because we don't mix in those circles. So it's like very much kind of based on what you're exposed to as well.
Yeah, and I think as well, very similar to what you're saying, like people exposed to certain things, and as you're growing up, some people tell you you could be this, you could be that, and they often tell you, I mean, when I was growing up, people didn't really say you could be a programmer, for example. Um, and that's turned into a job that I think maybe later generations may grow up hearing about that a lot more,
Mm.
Yeah.
but I don't know, maybe our generation's not so much because in the early 90s, it's like it's not if not everybody even had a computer,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
true.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of what you said, Temi, that it's the kind of sometimes maybe your parents, your circle, not knowing all the opportunities in tech that are out there, and then also um, the school system putting essentially black kids in boxes a lot of the time
Mm,
as to what
Yeah.
you can and can't do. Um, I call it dulling your shine and kind of limiting, putting those limitations in place.
mm,
And I think it's what you
Yeah.
said earlier as well, Timmy. Like you got it. Like one of the reasons you got interested in tech is because you saw that American black female YouTuber who works in that in technology industry. So you saw someone that you could identify with, and it's
Yeah.
having, it's for other young girls to see that same thing as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I think especially on YouTube, there's a lot more Black women who are American, kind of documenting their journey within tech. But I don't think there's as many Black British women doing it. So I think
Mm,
that's another reason why I think if you want to be visible with kind of the career you're doing, I think it's a good idea. Just because, like you said, and like I said earlier, I think seeing someone in a particular role really kind of makes you think like, oh, I didn't consider that before, but it actually seems quite interesting. I don't think people realize how much they're actually influenced by what it is they see, whether
mm,
that's content on TV, on advertisements, on social media. Like, you are influenced, and having someone that's already taken the first step before you really encourages you to then kind of follow in the same kind of footsteps. Like, if I hadn't seen some Black British women who were documenting their coding journeys on YouTube and on Instagram, I probably wouldn't have taken that step to do it myself, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
mm.
So is that kind of one of the reasons why you wanted to start your YouTube channel and your Instagram page to kind of be that black British woman for other kind of young people out there?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think the main reason I actually started is because I was teaching myself how to code, and on Twitter I came across 100 days of code, that challenge, and from there I just found like a big community of other software developers on Twitter, and then from there I found some on Instagram. So what I was actually doing was taking part in this challenge to kind of get better at programming, and whilst doing that I was just documenting my journey. And
Okay.
yeah, and then I guess through sharing some of my resources, like sharing my notes that I was making, I found that other people found them useful, or I had people messaging me saying that I've encouraged them to pick up coding or to look into a career in the tech industry. So I started it for, I guess, my own reasons, just to get better at programming. But along the way, I realized that it was the content I was creating was benefiting other people too.
And what is the 100 days of code?
It's basically just yeah, I guess it's just a challenge where you code for 100 days. You try and do maybe like 30 minutes to an hour every day. It's
Okay.
basically a challenge to try and help you learn how to code.
Okay, so anyone can join. You could be a.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
You just start off basic.
yeah, exactly.
Do you want to tell us about your YouTube channel? And also, you said you are the creator of this new platform, Simplex Code.
Yeah, yeah. So I started the YouTube off of the Instagram account, and I basically started it because I realized that I was getting similar questions over and over again about from other people wanting to figure out how they can learn to code or how they can get started in tech, or people who were still at uni who wanted to get onto a graduate scheme as well. So I just thought it would be more useful to have information in one place than just to keep answering the same questions again. And so that's kind of why I started the YouTube. And I guess from there, I just found it was a good place to go into more detail about some of the content I was making on Instagram. And I guess in terms of Simplex Code and the platform, that came off my original Instagram account, which was temilola.dev. I basically rebranded because I didn't want my kind of account to be, I felt like it was coming off as more of a tech influencer account, which I didn't really like. I wanted it to be more of a educational platform where people can use resources and they can use my resources. I basically wanted it to be a place where people can come and learn whatever it is they want to learn about tech.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So, do you find it easy kind of breaking down the complexity of like some of these concepts into kind of bite-sized, digestible nuggets for people to consume? People who may be at uni and this is their first kind of interaction with some of these concepts. Is that transition, like how do you find kind of turning that content into something that's quite complex into something quite simple?
Yeah, I do find it a little bit tricky just because I don't think there's that much information on the internet about programming or software engineering or about different roles in tech that are just explained in a way that's simple and easy for everyone else to understand, everyone else who's
Mm,
not within the industry. So I do find myself spending a few hours and spending some time getting resources from completely different sites or books and then putting it all together and just kind of breaking it down into a way that's easy for everyone to understand.
yeah, I agree. I've tried several times to understand what DevOps is, and it's failed every time.
I even sent you a video about it.
I know, but it just doesn't really stick. And because I don't work in that world, so yeah, it feels a little bit more tricky for me. So I'm a newbie coming into it.
What's it like building so many followers on Instagram so quickly?
um I wouldn't say that there's any, I wouldn't say it's changed anything in particular. I think the one thing that's changed is probably the amount of questions that I get on a day. I think initially I didn't have that many people asking me like questions and career related questions, but I think now that the platform has grown a lot more, there's obviously a lot more people who consume my content. So there's a lot of people still asking certain questions, asking similar types of questions. So I think it's, I think I found that the more I created content that I find useful and content around like different careers or breaking things down, the more people started to find my page and find it useful. So I
Mm,
don't think it's really changed that much apart from, I guess, the audience and the amount of people who want to know more about the industry.
Right. And what's the kind of like feedback you get from people? Do you get a lot of people saying, "I read your content, I went away, and now I'm Temi 2.0," or
I think something that stands out to me is there were a few Black girls actually who I think watched my video about technology graduate schemes, and they found it useful and actually got themselves grad jobs, which
Oh,
I found
wow.
which I found really, really nice. So it is really nice to get that feedback. But most of the feedback I get is from young Black women saying that either that I've encouraged them to get back into programming or coding, or that I've encouraged them to just consider it as a career option altogether, which
oh
is
wow.
which is great, because that's kind of a big reason as to why I continue to make the content that I do.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
definitely, definitely. It's kind of like an ongoing circle now. Someone else inspired you, and now you're inspiring others, and then who knows where those people will go and inspire other Black females to now get into that industry as well. It's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Mm.
never-ending loop. Do you find that people contact you um, just more general questions around what are grad schemes like and how to get into grad schemes, or do you find it's mainly tech related?
Mm, I think it's a mix. I think it's definitely
Oh,
more people. I think it's definitely more people contacting me about like how do they get their career started in tech. So
yeah,
no, yeah, it's more of that and less of people contacting me about grad schemes.
right,
But
okay,
it's yeah.
okay, okay. And I guess just going back, I've got no question, just going back to kind of Black females reaching out to you and kind of sharing their journey, like, well, yeah, sharing their journey around how they've got a new grad scheme or how they're thinking about this as an industry or wanting to start kind of coding again. Does that make you feel like you've got a lot of responsibility to be like to be I don't want to say the face, but like to represent um, technology or the Black female perspective of working in the tech industry in a certain way? Do you feel like you have to be quite positive, or does that put a lot of pressure onto that and the kind of your content, um, you know, being of a certain standard? Does that kind of weigh on you at all?
Yeah, I think not so much, just because there are other Black British women doing it too, and that's what I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, how if I hadn't seen them, then I wouldn't have taken the step
Yeah.
to put my content out there. So I think it is nice knowing that I'm not the only one kind of documenting my journey. It kind of takes the weight off a little bit. And I think one thing I really try and do is not just share the highs of and the positives of working
Mm,
within the industry, but also the negatives as well. Like I try and be as transparent as possible. Like if I'm documenting myself learning a new concept within programming, I try and always be honest and say talk about if I am struggling with something or what I find difficult, just so that people don't come in with the idea that, oh, it's really easy, they can get to this point really quickly, and it's
yeah.
yeah. So I try and be as transparent as I can, just so that I don't give any false ideas of what it is like working within tech.
Oh
Mm,
yeah. Yeah, we do see that on your Instagram, sorry, on your Twitter as well. Like sometimes you mention, oh, you're working on a project and like been struggling with something for a few days, and then you find out like the solution, and like, oh, sometimes it's something that was right under your nose, or sometimes it's
Yeah,
like something that you could have never controlled anyway.
yeah,
But it's you're showing the reality of it.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. And I think sometimes people don't do that enough.
mm,
I think there's this perception that, oh, once you work in tech, you're going to be earning lots of money, and learning to code is easy. And that's something I thought before I started programming, until I realized that this is actually quite difficult, and I do struggle with some parts of it. And I think it's only recently that people are becoming a bit more honest and saying that it's not going to be, unless you have a background maybe in computer science or even maths, learning to program or learning to code isn't going to be just one straight path. Like there are going to be highs and lows.
mm,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And
good for me to hear as well that there are Black women coming to you, using your platform and give feedback back to you that they learned something and they're looking to get jobs in the industry because, for me as a Black man, when I go around the industry, I go to conferences, I apply for jobs, and it is not a diverse industry at all, especially when you like uh, look into companies that are like tech specialist companies or smaller businesses and stuff like that. They're all very white. So I don't see anyone who represents me very often, especially over the last couple of years that I've been doing this, and I definitely don't see black women.
Mm,
Yeah.
That's very rare for me.
mm. Just going back to that point that you mentioned, Tony, about people sharing their highs and lows, I do agree that is very, very important. Um, that everyone, I think sometimes when you from the outsider coming in, you look at someone and think, oh, their career journey's been just an uphill, 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 like steady trajectory going
Mm,
all the way up to 100%. And actually, a lot of the times with careers or things that you're focusing on, there's so many ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs constantly. And I think when the more that we talk about the lows, just as like a people in general, you can support each other and I don't know, offer advice and help
Yeah.
um, to kind of overcome those as well.
And I like that about your platform as well because I feel like social media is a lot of people always showing their best,
Yeah.
which I find a bit annoying sometimes because I know that's not the truth and I'm old enough to know that.
Yeah.
But it's a bit, I just find it a bit like fake, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I see the tweets that you put out there. Oh yeah, I'm working on this. Like I remember myself, like struggling. Oh yeah, just sitting there for days, weekends trying to figure something
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think as well what I try and do sometimes, if I'm working on something that I think I can document it and teach other people about it, I'll sometimes share like what I'm doing at work. So if I've learned a new type of testing technique or whatever it is, I'll share that on my story. And sometimes when I do that, I get people kind of give me feedback and say, "Thank you for sharing this. I feel like I don't know enough about what software engineers do." And
Mm,
they say that everyone talks about programming or coding, but I don't actually know what it is that developers do on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's something else that isn't really shown that much. So that's another thing I try and kind of share when I post on Twitter or my stories. So yeah.
yeah, a breakdown of what do you actually do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does your day actually look like?
Yeah.
Because you're just
Exactly.
throwing around terms, and I can't put the picture together.
Mm.
That's really good.
Uh, what are your long-term goals for this Simplex Code platform?
Yeah. So I think my main goal is to really just grow the platform even more and turn it into more of a community where other people who might be starting out or early on in their careers can meet each other and network and kind of benefit from the resources that I'm sharing. I think the main thing that I want to do is just kind of build that sense of an online community. Um, yeah, so I think that's the main thing. I think another thing is to continue to share resources that are more general within tech.
Mm,
So also shed some light on careers such as data science or DevOps or whatever else it might be. Just because I want it to be a place where I don't only focus on software engineering, but other roles within the industry. Just because it's not everyone that comes into tech that wants to learn how to code. So I think shedding some light on other career paths and other opportunities would be great. I'd also like to, hopefully, at some point down the line, um, I'd like my platform to be a place where people can also get opportunities, whether that's internships or grad schemes or jobs. I would
mm.
definitely like my platform to be of that kind of resource to people as well at some point in the future.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great ambitions, great goals to strive for. 100%.
Thank you.
I've got two final questions to ask you. What is one of the biggest, well, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self, your 18-year-old self, related to your career and future goals?
I guess the biggest piece of advice would probably be to pay attention to what it is that you like and enjoy and follow that. I think it's important to really, I think it's really easy to get distracted by what other people are doing and what your friends are doing, especially when you're quite young. So I would definitely say that to pay attention to what it is that you want and you want to work on and the spaces that you want to be in, and then go with that and just take control of your own future. Otherwise I think someone else would gladly do it for you. So yeah, I
Oh,
think that would be the
Temi,
biggest piece of advice.
you're dropping gems. You're dropping gems. And then, what's one of the biggest learnings that you've had in your career so far?
It's a good question. Probably to speak out and be more vocal. I think, especially, I guess, just how I am naturally, just quite reserved, a bit more quiet. I think that me not speaking out sometimes has led to myself sometimes missing out on opportunities or not getting the things I want. So I definitely think that once I started to be more vocal about where I wanted my career to go, I think things definitely started to change for me. So that's something I wish I'd done maybe a bit earlier. But that's the biggest lesson that I've learned. If you stay quiet about something, then how is anyone supposed to know that either you're struggling with it or that you're unhappy with it? So yeah.
Always speak up, always say how you're feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. Could not agree more.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so people can find me on YouTube. So my name is Temi Olukoko on YouTube. My Twitter is also Temi Olukoko, but you can follow my tech platform, which is Simplex Code, with an underscore on Twitter. And on Instagram, my handle is Simplex Code.
Perfect. So, and we'll be sharing those details on our Instagram page as well. So we'll wrap it up there. And thanks so much, Temi. It was great speaking to you, hearing all about your career journey, and your kind of what you're doing now, kind of outside of work, on your YouTube channel, Instagram page. So it was really, really great speaking to you.
Yeah, and we hope to see your platform grow even more than it already has. So good luck in the future. And yeah, we hope to speak to you again.
Thank you. Thank you both, Nicole and Stefan, for having me. It's been great sharing my journey on your podcast.
Thanks. Bye.
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 If you have any questions or dilemmas, email us on ordinaryblackprofessionals@gmail.com, or we can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ordinaryblackprofessionals. Also, don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and leave a rating and comment.